Hello everyone, this is Dr. Maha Abdurrahman. I have been asked for a revision over the excretory system, particularly the kidney and the urinary system. And I really would like to summarize it in 3 diagrams. Because it's a complicated topic, so I would like to simplify it as possible using diagrams. Now that's the first diagram for the urinary system. If we really understand how it works for the urinary system, it would be easy for us to understand how kidney works. Now the urinary system is made up of the kidney. These are the 2 kidneys over there. Okay. As you see here, there are 2 main blood vessels going inside the kidney. The first one is coming from the aorta, the red one, and going inside the kidney, as you see over here. Okay, this blood vessel is the renal artery, which brings the blood, the oxygenated blood inside the kidney that is full of waste. And then we will talk about the type of waste later. And then you will see the renal vein. The renal vein is the one with black. So this is the renal vein that will eventually join it to form the vena cava that will go back to the heart carrying the deoxygenated blood. Okay. And of course, the blood should be going through the renal vein should be shouldn't have any waste. Okay. Then you will see 2 ureters. These are the 2 ureters going from the kidney to this bladder. This is called the bladder. The bladder where the urine is stored. So basically, urine is going out from the kidney. I refer to the urine with the yellow color. So urine is leaving the kidney. From the kidney going to the bladder. The bladder would store the urine until you go to the washroom, where the urine will be released from or through the urethra. So this is the urethra, okay? And then when you go to the washroom, the urine will be released from the urethra by a muscle that open and close whenever you go to the washroom, okay? So this is simply how the urinary system is composed of all the parts of the urinary system. Now, the main part of the urinary system that really work to remove the waste is the kidney. Okay, if we enlarge the kidney, okay, so if I take a part from here and enlarge the kidney, okay, this is what I would say. This is what I would see. What you see here is an enlarged kidney. Now, as you see here, kidney is made up of millions of nephrons. These are the nephrons. You can see them here. I'm highlighting them with black. Millions of nephrons in each kidney. All right. And these nephrons are the units. These are the units that filter the waste. Okay. So these are the nephrons, are the units that filter the waste. Now, you will see here cortex. The cortex is this part of the kidney. And the medulla. The medulla is the part that actually carries the nephron. All right. After filtration, as I mentioned, from the nephron, the urine will be going to the ureter and then stored in the bladder. Now, to facilitate how kidney works or how nephron works, because as I mentioned, kidney is made up of millions of nephrons, how filtration of the blood takes place, I will use this diagram that says it all. Now, what we're doing here, we're enlarging part of the nephron, okay? And then this is the renal artery, as you see, and this is the nephron. The nephron is composed of a capsule, as you see here, okay? I'm referring to it with the blue color, called Bowman's capsule. As you see, the renal artery is entering, or part of it, of course, part of the capillaries are entering into Bowman's capsule, where a lot of material will be filtered out of the blood, okay? What exactly will be filtered from the Bowman capsule out of the blood? I'll have glucose. Glucose will be filtered from the blood. I'll have some ions and some water, Okay, so those are basically the material that will be filtering from the blood. And not to forget the very, very, very important urea. Urea is very toxic, and I will talk about it later after I finish how the difference work. So these are the main parts that will leave the blood. So these will leave the blood and will go inside the tubules of the nephrons. All of these are the tubules of the nephrons. All of these. Okay, all of these. Now, including the loop of Henle, all of these are the tubules of the nephrons, okay? And then only those who are able to leave to the main collecting duct will be able to slide to the ureter, and so to the bladder, and so is adjusted outside the urine, outside the body as urine, okay? Now, you will notice that the blood cells, like the red blood cells, like the white blood cells, also proteins, amino acids, all of these guys will not be filtered. Why? Simply because they are very large. They're very large molecule to be filtered from the blood vessels to inside the Bowman capsule. Okay, they're very large to pass. So now I have inside the tubules, I have the glucose, the ions, the water, and the urea. But what happens next? As you see, all of these blood vessels are surrounding also the tubules and going back to the renal vein. Now, what will happen after filtration? Let me write here. So the first step was filtration for the 4 parts that I mentioned: glucose, ions, water, and urea. And then after filtration occur to the tubules of the nephrons, what will happen is reabsorption. So I really want you to know these 2 steps. After filtration, there's the reabsorption. This reabsorption, it really depends. It depends on the amount needed back to the blood. Because this reabsorption, guys, I want you to know this reabsorption is going back into the blood. This reabsorption is going back to the blood. So it really depends. How much do I need from water? Am I fasting? Does my body need a lot of water? In this case, a lot of water will be going back from these tubules, reabsorbed into the blood vessel, and then go to the renal vein. Also, ions. What do I mean by ions? Like calcium, like sodium, like chloride. Do I have enough in my body? Am I eating extra sodium, extra chloride? If I'm having extra, then they won't be reabsorbed, right? They will continue in the renal tubules until they are released here in the form of urine. But if I'm not having enough amount of iron, then these ions will be reabsorbed back to the renal veins. Okay? Something that has to be reabsorbed fully. So something that has to be reabsorbed fully, okay, is the glucose. Okay? Because glucose is the currency of energy inside our blood. That's a precious thing. We can't just leave it go inside urine, so it will be fully reabsorbed. Because my blood needs glucose will be all reabsorbed from the tubules back to the renal vein. Okay. Of course, except if you are diabetic, if you have a problem, then this glucose won't be absorbed back to your blood. In this case, you will see that your urine will have some glucose. So glucose in urine, which is not the case in normal people. It could be seen in diabetics, but not in normal people. Okay, so that's not the normal process, because the normal process, that glucose has to be fully reabsorbed. Now, I spoke about glucose, ions, and water, but I haven't mentioned urea. Urea have to be fully excreted. Why? It's a common sense because urea is very toxic. So urea is fully excreted. That means when I'm saying fully excreted, it simply means that it is not reabsorbed, okay? When I'm saying fully excreted, it is not reabsorbed, not reabsorbed. I'm trying to find a place. So urea is not reabsorbed. Not reabsorbed at all. Okay, it is fully excreted to form the urine. All right. So just to sum this up, I will use another diagram. Let me share it with you, which is going in here. So these are the type of waste. Okay, these are the type of waste I have spoke on: urea, ions, and water. So urea is fully excreted because it is toxic. Okay, from where does this urea come? This is also something that I want to share with you. Now, urea is coming as a process or as a product from a process called deamination. What is deamination? Simply from the name, deamination, it's changing amino acids. When you're eating extra amino acids, it's basically these amino acids cannot be stored into your body. So any extra amino acid will be converted to fat or carbohydrates like glycogen to be stored inside body. This process where you are changing the proteins into any other thing, like into carbohydrates, into any other source of nutrients. This is called deamination. This process produces ammonia in H3, produces ammonia as a toxic material. This ammonia will be converted to urea in the liver. So this ammonia will be converted to something called urea. This urea is very toxic and it should be all excreted in the urine. Okay, as you said, that the kidney will filter out the urea. It will never be reabsorbed, so it will be excreted from the body in the form of urine. Can we relate why do we call it urine then? Yes, because it's full of urea. Okay, then as I mentioned, the ions, there should be a balance. I mentioned for the ions in the water, so it really depends whether you have a lot of ions in your body and then you need to excrete some, whether you have a few ions in your body, then you need to reabsorb some of it and not to lose it all in the urine. This really depends. Okay, so there should be a balance between ions and water, meaning too much or too little water is drawn into cells by osmosis. Having the wrong amount of water can damage the cells and they don't work well as normal. I really don't want to go deep into this because the osmosis part is explained in another chapter. All what I want you to know for now is that ions are lost through the urine, okay, because the right amount of iron is reabsorbed into the blood, okay, after filtration, and the rest is removed from the body in the urine, where whatever amount needed, as I mentioned before, is reabsorbed from the kidney tubules back to the blood. Also, some ions are lost in the sweat. Finally, the water, as I mentioned, the water also there is a balance. Some of the water is lost by the sweat and from the lungs when we're breathing out, but the right amount of water will be reabsorbed again from the kidney to the blood, and whatever needs to be excreted out of the body will be removed in the urine. So I already explained that on the diagram, and I believe on the diagram which was much more comprehensive. Now, the next part that I want to say, and the last part, is who control the amount of urine that needs to be released outside of our body? It's something called ADH hormone, which I'm gonna go over it now. So the last part that I want to explain today is why the concentration and the amount of urine is different from a day to day. Like you will notice on a cold day that you're going to the washroom more frequent, While on a hot day where you are already losing a lot of water by sweating, you're not really going to the washroom that often because the amount of urine is not much on a hot day where you are already losing a lot of water. That's, I believe, quite explanatory by a common sense, because in the winter when you're not sweating, there's a lot of water inside your body that needs to be released in the urine, while on a hot day, as I mentioned, when you're losing a lot of water through sweating, then you don't need to release as well water by urine. So that's why in the summer you don't often go as much to the washroom as in the winter. But who regulates this whole process? Who decides the amount of urine, whether it's much or little? It's the pituitary gland. As you see here, that's the pituitary gland. It is found beneath the brain. Now, the pituitary gland produces a lot of hormones. One of these hormones that, of course, guys, the hormones are released into the blood. One of these hormones that is released to the blood and affect the amount of the water that the kidney reabsorbs back is called the ADH. ADH hormone. ADH hormone is for antidiuretic hormone. Okay, antidiuretic hormone or ADH. Diuretic means a lot of urine. So antidiuretic hormones means that when this hormone is released in a much amount, you would have less urine because it's antidiuresis, it's antidiuretic, it releases less urine. Okay, now how the pituitary gland is releasing this ADH and affecting the kidney, really I love to show it on another slide. Let me show it here. This slide down here is quite nice for explaining this part. Now let's say that your water content inside your body is low. Let's say you're fasting. Your water inside the body is not much. The first receptor that will detect this is a receptor in the brain. It will detect it through the blood that the water content in your body is low. Okay? Then the coordination center in the brain will receive this information and will coordinate a response. This response will be sent to the pituitary gland to release more ADH. When it's releasing more ADH, as I'm mentioning, more ADH means less urine. So more water will be reabsorbed from the kidney tubule. But doctor, you've just said there will be a less urine. So how come more water is reabsorbed? Exactly, because more water is reabsorbed from the kidney tubule back to the blood, right? That's why the urine produced that is literally leaving the kidney to the ureter to the bladder is less. So you would have less urine. Because more water is reabsorbed back to the blood, so less water is released in the urine. Okay? And then this ADH won't be be released in a big amount. Otherwise, you would have less urine all the time, which is not good. So once this balance is regenerated again, okay, and the water content increases accordingly, there will be something called negative feedback. Negative feedback means once the water content increases, the opposite will occur, because you can't keep on having a lot of ADHD all the time. You will have less urine all the time. All the water will be collected inside your body. You may have a water intoxication. We don't want that to happen. So that's why there's a negative feedback mechanism. This negative feedback mechanism is literally the opposite, okay? So now you have a lot of water inside your body, right? So who will detect that? The brain will detect that you have a lot of water inside the body. And then the brain will coordinate a response by sending information to the pituitary gland to release less ADH. Less ADH means water will be less reabsorbed from the kidney tubule back to the blood. That means less water is going back to the blood, so more water is releasing into the urine. So I would have more urine or more diluted urine, because less water is reabsorbed from the kidney tubules. That means more water is released to the urine. I would get more urine, more diluted urine. Okay? And this will eventually decrease the content of the water inside my body. And so the negative feedback again happen, and so on, and the cycle will be repeated. Okay? I hope it was easy and clear. These are the three main points in the urinary system. You need to know how the kidney works. And for you to know how the kidney works, you really need to know the composition of the kidney and the urinary system, how it works, okay? And how they complement one another. The second part, you need to know how the filtration of the waste is happening through the kidney and how the reabsorption occurs. And then the last part is the one that I just explained, which is how the concentration of the urine is controlled by hormones. This hormone is the ADHD. Only ADH. I don't know why I mentioned ADHD. So it's the ADH hormone that is released from the pituitary gland into the bloodstream, and how it regulates the amount of the urine in the body, how the negative feedback mechanism is complementing this as well. I hope it was clear. I didn't want to make it long, so that the simpler the better. And I hope it was clear and beneficial for everyone. Thank you. See you in the next videos.